Hi you guys, it's me Kris and welcome back to the Doll Studio. So today's video, I am so excited to do it finally. It has been 4 years in the making. This is a video that I know a lot of people have been waiting for me to make, and it's what it's like to work at the American Girl store. I quite literally cannot explain to you guys the amount of gratitude I have in my heart for the amount of support that I received in my last video. A lot of people are just finding out that Agsalonstylist, aka me Kris, I am back on American Girl YouTube, and I just cannot thank you guys enough. If you're a new subscriber, thank you so much for supporting me. Just to let you guys know, this is a video that I shot and it's a tour of the American Girl store during the Christmas season. I just wanted something for you guys to visually be able to watch, but I am gonna have titles for every single category of what I've kind of dissected my experience at the American Girl store to kind of be like. I hope you guys enjoyed the little video. I didn't just want it to be me and a doll. I feel like that would just be boring right now for this video specifically. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, my name is Kris. I used to work at the American Girl store from 2018 to 2019. I just want to start off with a few disclaimers. There obviously are some things that I can't talk about. I can't talk about any discounts that American Girl offers. I can't talk about experiences that happen behind the scenes at the American Girl store. I can only really talk about my personal experience working there and what it was like and how things kind of run at one of the big flagship store locations. I know that Heart Forever and Always did a collaboration with a person that did work at the American Girl store, and I will put that thumbnail up right now. She did a video and she interviewed someone that I'm pretty sure worked at one of the smaller boutiques in the Canada stores, and that is its own entity. Working at the flagship location is a very different experience, and I just want to preface that by saying that before I get started, that experience is one of the boutiques, one of the smaller shops. I don't want to discredit obviously her and her experiences, but for me, this is what it's like to work at one of the bigger flagship locations. So that's just my little disclaimer. I will link that video down below, but this is my story and kind of how it was for me. So my story starts when I was a lot younger, actually. I basically started a relationship with an employee at the American Girl store in New York who is a manager there. I don't want to specifically say names, obviously, but she had a very big role in the New York store location. And when I was younger, she would always say hi to me and my family, always make sure that we were having a good time. She got to know my parents very, very well, and, you know, took time out of her work day to make sure that we were having a great time. Flash forward to when I was a senior in high school, American Girl decided to open up a store at the King of Prussia Mall in Pennsylvania. So of course, I made my sister take me to the grand opening, and this specific manager was there to help open and launch the new location. And it was a temporary location only for the holiday season, but she was there and I was in line, and basically her and I sparked a conversation. And through that conversation, she actually remembered me. She remembered me from when I was a younger child, and she was very happy to see me again. And her and I, for the next 30 minutes, basically had a big conversation about American Girl. I mean, I really talked my ear off to her and told her about my love and passion for American Girl dolls, since I obviously haven't seen her since I was a lot younger, but she did remember me. And through that, I did tell her about the fact that I was going to move to New York to college, and that I had a very big interest in working at the American Girl store in New York. And she then handed me her card and said, hey, when you move to New York, please by all means give me a call and I will make sure that the right people get in touch with you, and I would be more than happy to have you on our team. And I said, okay, great. She then handed me her business card, and basically for a couple of months, obviously I didn't reach out. You do have to be 18 to work at the New York store location, and I then turned 18, and that following fall I moved to New York. Of course, since I was very young, I did end up losing her business card, but luckily enough, one of the first things that I did when I moved to New York, I went to the 5th Avenue location and I ran into her and I was like, hey, I live in New York now, please hire me. And she quite literally handed me another business card and said, email me your resume. Within the week, I emailed her my resume and I then started the interview process. So back in the fall of 2018, the old store was still there. It was still on 5th Avenue. So my entire interview process was done at the old store, and that's really where all my interviews happened, where all my training happened. After I sent in my resume to her, about a week had passed, and I was actually at the gym when I received my phone call from HR, and they basically wanted to schedule out an appointment for me to come in to actually do the in-person interview. So I gave her all of my information, and then the following week, I went in for my in-person interview. So the actual interview was right next to the store. It was in a separate building. You literally treat it as just like any other interview. I dressed in all black, and basically I was assigned to a manager, and then that manager proceeded with the interview, asked me questions, talked to me about my resume, asked me about my experience with the brand, and all I can remember, and from what he told me, was he knew he wanted to hire me immediately because of how much I talked about my love for American Girl. I quite literally sat there, and for the entire duration, the interview was like over, and I still was talking about American Girl and my love and passion for American Girl. I just remember him telling me, well, it goes without saying, I would be more than happy to hire you. And then right then and there, I filled out all my paperwork to basically start the process of being able to go in for training. So something I didn't know was that they are able to pick what department you're best suited for. I didn't really show an interest in working at the hair salon. I kind of was at the point where I was like willing to do anything. But I remember after the interview, he did tell me he wanted to put me in the create your own section because I was so knowledgeable about the face molds, the hair types, all of the different things like that. So he was like, I think you'd be a great part of my team. I will literally never forget. He quite literally said, like, I want the best of my team, the most knowledgeable. Like, I cannot wait to have you. And I was like, okay, great. So now let's talk about departments. In the old store, the way that it was set up was create your own and Bitty Baby were on the same floor. So that's its own department. That has its own manager, which sends you out your schedules. You can't switch between departments. Since I was hired to work in the create your own section and the Bitty Baby section, I couldn't work at the hair salon, and I couldn't obviously pick up a shift at the American Girl Cafe. Everyone who is hired in their departments stays within their departments. You can't bounce around or switch where you want to work in the store. For you to switch departments when you're already hired, there has to be an open position in the department that you want. So that's inevitably what happened to me down the road, but I am getting ahead of myself. But I just want to let you guys know that in the departments, you stay within your departments. You have your own person that's an assistant manager called the lead, and that is where you stay for the duration of your job. So training was a week-long process. You go in for orientation where someone comes in, you're with some new hires, other people that just got hired around the same time that you were hired, and you are ran through the way that the store works. You sign contracts at that time, which I really can't get into. You're given like a very brief overview of the brand as a whole, a little history lesson. You kind of get the knowledge of the dolls a little bit, and then you go into POS training, learning the cash register, learning all of that. It was long and it is a lot of information, but I found it to be fun. And then on top of that, you are being trained to work with a very diverse group of people that come into the store. There's so many different kinds of people walking into the store, and you essentially are being trained like you are working at Disney World, where you have to be up and active at all times and really have a happy face and really make sure that the customer is happy at the end of the day. And that is very much what American Girl prides themselves in, is excellent customer service, and you basically are being trained to do that. I just want to say that training for the cafe, there's an extra added layer to it, which is obviously food training. And then for the hair salon, there's doll training, which I just want to say this right now. Everyone knows this. You do not need a cosmetology license to work in the American Girl doll hair salon. Only in the girls side do you have to have a cosmetology license where you're working with girls. So after training was done, which is a whole like week process, I started working in the create your own section. And since create your own was also in part with Bitty Baby, I did work with a lot younger little girls and boys. So it was like 4-year-olds to like 6-year-olds, a lot of that running around. And honestly, my heart was really not in the department specifically create your own wasn't a department I had a lot of fun with. It was a lot of me telling people that you couldn't leave with the doll that you create, and you have to wait at that time like 6 months for your doll, something crazy like that. And people would just be upset and they'd be like, why am I even doing this then? But you could make shirts and you could make outfits. I remember that was an option that you used to be able to make in store. I personally have to give a shout out to the team that I worked with in that department because they really made my experience great. I had a fun time, but every time that I would go from the top floor where Create Your Own and Bitty Baby were, I would have to pass the salon, and I would just always see the girls in the salon having so many people talking to the kids and really just like looking like they were enjoying themselves, and that's really where all the action was. So I kind of felt like I was on the outside looking in on the actual part of the store I wanted to work in. I did tell my manager at the time on multiple occasions that I wanted to like work downstairs in the hair salon, and I kept inquiring about any open positions, and she just kind of kept saying like, oh, you want to leave me? Like, please don't leave me. Like, you're doing such a great job up here. But I really didn't want to work in the Create Your Own section. I wanted to work in the American Girl doll hair salon. So one day on my lunch break, I went downstairs and I talked to the manager of the doll hair salon. I have to take a moment and quite literally praise this manager. She no longer works there, which absolutely, without a doubt, infuriates me. Actually, to this day, that she no longer works there. I cannot thank this woman enough. No one believed in me more. No one rooted for me more. She was so fun. She was such a fun manager. And when she became my manager, I just was obsessed with her. And she made my experience at the American Girl store so amazing. I went up to her and I said, hey, like, my name is Kris and I would love to work in your department. And she was the first step into me working in the hair salon. She said, I can see that you obviously want to work with us and I would love to have you train the next time we have a new set of people come in and you can train with them. And I was like, okay, great. By this point, it was November. She did warn me and say, hey, like, you're gonna get trained to work in the doll hair salon, but just know that there's no open positions as of right now. I'm gonna have to get back to you in January when all of the seasonal people leave and there's more open spots. I would love to have you depending on how you do in training. And I was like, okay, great. So basically, I'm gonna have to see how well I do in training. So before we go into the section about training for the doll hair salon, I do want to talk about a seasonal person versus a core member person versus a benefited person at the American Girl store. These are all the positions and the kinds of employee you are. A seasonal employee is only there during the season. They're seasonal, as in they basically only come during the summer or they basically come only during the winter. And then after that, you could be a core member, which means that you're basically working there full time. So when you work at the American Girl store, everyone starts off basically as a seasonal, which means that you're only guaranteed to work for the season that you are hired in. I was hired in the winter season of 2018. So that means that I was only guaranteed my job up until the end of the season. And then after that, the manager of that department decides who they want to basically keep on their team. And then that's when you become a core member, which means that you basically have a full-time position there and you're there throughout the entire year. And then benefited is basically someone that has all of the insurance benefits, all of the, 401k things. I don't really know. It basically just means American Girl is your job. Like, that's what it is. And for me personally, I only got to be a core member. I think that you have to like really be there for a while for you to be a benefited position. And there's only ever so many benefited positions that are open. And when they're open, they go to people that have been there for the longest time. So training for the American Girl doll hair salon is typically supposed to be 2 days and you're really not allowed to leave until you get the hairstyles right. So training is intense to an extent. So for my hair training, I actually had Kalia, who was in my Corinne release vlog. She's fantastic. She quite literally knows these styles up and down and all of her styles are clean and amazing. I will say at the time that I worked there, New York was very much well known for having the cleanest styles. We had a reputation for having very tight styles. I just remember how serious everyone in the doll hair salon took that role, as in everyone had their styles together, everyone made sure that their styles were clean, everyone made sure that their styles were tight, their braids were clean, like everything. Like, it was a very serious job to us because we had that reputation to uphold. So when I went in for training, I was trained basically to make sure that everything was just like the picture, clean, and that every doll that left my chair was like impeccable basically. So since we were still in the old store, it was attached to the building that I had my interview in. And so for training, we went into one of the conference rooms and Kalia sat at the head of the table, showed us the style and showed us how to replicate it, what tools we needed to create the styles. And here's a picture of one of my first sweetheart braids. I cannot believe I found this, but this is one of the first times that I attempted a sweetheart braid and I thought it was so good for its time. And now looking back at it, I'm cringing at how awful it was. I will say this right here, right now. If you think that you know how to handle every kind of American Girl doll hair, you don't. I walked in with a very big ego and I said, oh, that's not how you curl Gabriella's hair. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, you curl it like this. And I would do what a lot of people do with Gabriella's hair and just wrap it around the brush and have like nothing for it to shape to. And she kind of was like, yeah, no, like there are dolls that are gonna come in that are so unbelievably loved by their owner that you're gonna have to do it a certain way. So Kalia got me together. I'm not even joking. Like, she really like made me throw my ego out the window and humble myself, and I learned from her. So I'm a very fast learner, and so I actually only really had to train for 4 hours. I was kind of speeding through the whole book, and Kalia started to realize that I was getting the hairstyles very clean, very fast. She just had to show me essentially, and I would replicate it. And since I know how to braid and I know how to to work with hair, it was very easy for me to speed along the process. So I didn't end up having to do the second day. I literally only did 4 hours. And then after that, Kalia was like, okay, get on the floor. And with the permission of the manager, that rest of the shift and the next day, I did nothing but doll hair. And I actually got to work downstairs in the hair salon, which was amazing. And I know someone's gonna ask this, but basically American Girl, there was like a box full of display dolls, old display dolls that they use specifically for you to train with. So you're getting like a Gabriella. At the time, I think there was like a Caroline, a Tenny. Those kind of dolls were all in one box and they were very much used, but you're training with just that. And there's no salon chair. You're literally putting them between your legs and you're going in and learning the styles that way. And the number one thing that I was told is that every doll should only take a maximum of 15 minutes, depending on how well loved she is. So you are timed and you are trained to work under a specific time, but that's just the New York store. That's just my experience. I don't know how the other stores do it, but that was just me. So after those 2 days of training, I was back at my old department. I was back at Create Your Own, and basically I had to wait up until the season was over, until after Christmas. It was around this time though that American Girl was switching from the 5th Avenue location to the 75 Rockefeller Center location. And with that, I will say that there was a perk of having that transition happen while working there. One of the biggest ones was we got to sample the store before the general public. It was really fun. We got a free meal and it was amazing. And I got to bring my doll Sienna to that, my Create Your Own doll. She was the only doll I had at college. So it was really, really fun. Another thing that I just want to quickly add to that is that American Girl wanted to get rid of a lot of the stuff in the old store. And with getting rid of a lot of stuff in the old store, I can neither confirm nor deny that 1 or 2 of my dolls in my collection may or may not be from the old store on 5th Avenue. I can neither confirm or deny that. You can speculate as you so choose. So after the holiday season was over, a lot of seasonals were not asked to come back, and the manager of the hair salon said, hey, if you still remember the styles, I would be more than happy to add you to my department. So I said goodbye to the Create Your Own department, and I finalized my switch over into the American Girl doll hair salon in January of 2019. I was so excited. Now, even though I didn't work in the American Girl doll hair salon for the winter season, I was offered a core position in the salon. So she believed in me enough and saw my styles and saw that they were really, really clean and up to the standards of the salon. And she, without even really seeing anything else other than those 2 shifts that I had, she offered me a position and I took it and ran with it. And I am forever grateful once again to the manager that was the manager of the American Girl doll hair salon when I worked there. So Maria and Mo still works there. Maria unfortunately does not. They both were the senior stylists there at the salon, and they both took initiative and basically even more trained me on the hairstyles and said, okay, you got seasonal training, let's give you core member training. And I went in and they basically at every step had me take down and put together a style, take down, put together a style until it was, I'm not even joking, like perfect. Like those 2 women quite literally like put me through the boot camp of boot camp for styling American Girl doll hair. It had to be hard for me to basically take out the style. Like I had to jiggle around the doll a million times to make sure the style didn't come out, that the style didn't move. That's a very big thing, is they didn't want the styles to move or anything. They wanted it to be able to last a lot of playtime. I got to make so many amazing friends. You guys know who you are, and every day was just so fun to go into work and get to spend 8 hours a day just loving what I was doing, getting to talk about American Girl dolls, getting to meet people from all over the world. And I say all over the world because quite literally, like, American Girl does have a huge audience and people would come from all over the world to visit New York. And of course, if you had a little one, they always wanted to go to the American Girl store. So I met people from Australia, Switzerland, California, other parts of the country. Like it was just insane and amazing how many people I got to meet, how many American Girl doll fans I got to meet and really talk to the fandom of American Girl. It was so special, and I really got to brighten up people's day by styling their doll's hair to perfection. It was amazing. Got to pierce their ears in the back. It was just so fun. Of course, there's more stories to it, but I will do a separate video for that. But I want to get into how I basically started AGIG and AGTube. So in March of 2019, I came across AGIG on my Instagram and I was like, wait, there's an entire like Instagram dedicated to this. And then I did have the idea of starting a YouTube for American Girl dolls. I knew my collection was pretty big, but after deep diving, I realized that there was like a whole community behind it. I really only ever watched my favorite AG tubers, which were like Steven's What a Dancer, Anna Blaze Lamentos, Mixie Pixie 7, Heart, Forever and Always, Small Dolls, you know, like people that I went out of my way to watch from when I was younger. And now I was learning more like new people that had just came out. And I was so excited that I was like, hey, I should start my own YouTube for my American Girl dolls. So one day on Craigslist, someone was selling a Laney camper and I went to go pick it up in the city and I took it back to my dorm and quite literally just filmed it on a random afternoon, edited it and chose my username, which is Agsalonstylist at the time, and posted it to YouTube. And for a while it really didn't do anything and I was just like, okay, well, I'm on AGTube now. And then after that I started my Instagram and I put myself as Agsalonstylist and I just started posting everything and anything I was doing with my American Girl dolls that I had at college. I just started taking pictures of quite literally like everything, and I mean like everything. I would change my dolls' outfits and change their hair, and then I would post a picture of it. I would change their hair again, put them somewhere else, and then post a picture of it. And I just kept going everywhere and just taking pictures of my dolls that I had at college, and started to just really build up my audience, I guess you could say. I hosted lives that my coworkers would watch. I started to become friends with fellow AG-tubers and AGIGers. I basically then did, I think it was 2 contests, and with those 2 contests, I actually gained a ton of followers with on my YouTube and my Instagram, and then it started to kind of seep into work. My coworkers and I would talk about it, and management would kind of chime in and be interested and be like, oh, like, what's your channel? And I would talk about it during work and really just try to elevate as much as possible during work, let everyone know about it, let customers know about it. Like, I was very active on making sure that I was doing it and getting my name really out there. So the summer had started and I was starting to gain a lot of traction. I was starting to get followers. People were watching me. I was very, very happy about it. And I actually got some opportunities to do some merch. My first set of merch came out with the Lux doll, and she created an iconic Icon Queen shirt. As many of you guys know, Icon Queen was kind of my saying, kind of my slogan. There's a reason why I don't say it anymore, and I'll get into that in 2 seconds. But I did create a crop top with her. We collaborated on it, and she sold them through her Etsy shop and her website, and people really did sell it out. So thank you if you guys have one of those shirts. But essentially they went live, and I then got told that I needed to have a meeting downstairs with HR, and without getting too into it, essentially I had to stop production on any kind of merch or future merch, and was reminded of the contracts that I had signed when signing on to the brand and working with the brand. So I had to stop all Icon Queen stuff, and I wasn't really able to create anything that would profit me, myself, and I alone without American Girl's advisement or attachment to it. So since I worked at the flagship location, I did sign obviously corporate contracts, and I wasn't able to really do anything outside of American Girl that competes with the brand, anything 18-inch doll wise, toy wise, anything like that, because it technically competes with American Girl. So any merch that I created was no longer, any creative hairstyles that I created while working in the store are technically theirs, and all of my ideas that I basically had, I had to basically keep under wraps because American Girl owned them if I put them to paper. So basically that first incident was a crack in the glass, as Taylor Swift would say, or the first crack in the glass. After that, I was really bummed out by that, but I was approached by the manager that had given me this opportunity to work in the store altogether, the one that I met in King of Prussia, and she came up to me and said, hey, you know, we've come across your YouTube and we would love to do a collaboration with you, like a little hairstyle of the month, and make you the focal point of this style of the month. And I said, oh my god, that's amazing, that's great. And within the week, she basically gave me a timeline of when I had to create a hairstyle, and this is where we're going to go into the style of the month. Basically, I was given the task of making a hairstyle that only took 15 minutes to do, that was really pretty, and that could be easily replicated by all of the American Girl stores across the country and in Canada. And with that task, I know a lot of you guys remember the email spread of the hairstyle, the princess ponytail braid, I was given the option of the doll that they used for the model, which at the time 80 was the first one that immediately came to mind. I wanted American Girl to show diversity. They interviewed me, they took a little blurb of the interview and they used it for the email blast. I am just gonna say this wholeheartedly, I wasn't able to choose the price point. I know a lot of people were DMing me upset that the price point was $25, and I just kept saying I didn't choose the price point, American Girl did. And then on top of that, I wasn't in charge of the name. I wanted to call it like the Icon Queen braid, kind of like, you know, my followers, and they said no. So they came up with the princess braid, ponytail braid. I honestly forget what it is, but they came up with the name themselves, and I kind of just said okay. At that point, it was out of my reach and my hands anyway. Now, the amount of times that I had to send videos to the other stores because no one quite literally could actually replicate what I had created was so upsetting to me, and you guys were DMing me photos of these styles that I didn't create. I don't know what other stores were doing, but for me personally, it was so upsetting knowing that my followers and like literally something I care about so much, like this style, wasn't being done correctly and you guys were paying for it. I wanted to speak out on it so much, but since I was working there, like I couldn't, and I couldn't tell you guys like, hey, like, you know, that's not the way that the style's supposed to be. It's supposed to be this way. And I kept sending videos to the other stores saying, this is how the braid is done. This is how it is. This is how it's supposed to look. And other stores just quite literally threw it out the window, or I don't know what happened, but the training in other stores just further proving my point that New York takes it very, very seriously, and the other stores I again am assuming don't to the extent of New York. So it was just really a slap in the face, and I felt so bad during the entire month of, I think that style came out in July or August, but it was literally a month prior to me leaving, so you guys can start seeing the second crack in the glass, if you will. However, with the success of the style of the month, I was already in talks to basically create the styles of the month for every single month, and I just was really not okay with the way that the first one had been dealt with, and that was kind of simmering and sitting down with me. And then after the style of the month had happened, September came, and it started to become very apparent to me that any business outside of American Girl I wanted to do with my dolls wasn't gonna really happen without American Girl's involvement in it, and anything that I created creatively for 18-inch dolls wouldn't be able to be done if I was still working there. And that's when it really hit me, like, I need to leave if I want to do anything creatively on my own that I want ownership of, basically full on Taylor Swift style. Like, I want the rights to my music, and it just really sat with me for a while, for a good 2 weeks before I initially left. And quite literally, I just decided, all right, well, I'm just gonna take my last little hurrah, and if they don't accept this, then I'm gonna basically leave. So this is where I want to talk about the PR list and American Girl's PR list. So essentially, a PR list is basically a list of people that a brand will choose to send free products to, for reviews, for photos, to basically utilize in their content. And American Girl, just like any other brand, has a PR list. These are people that you quite literally can see get product from American Girl. They're the people that get huge boxes full of hauls. They have the new collection before it releases. There are rules and regulations that are kind of either unspoken of that you have to follow, or American Girl will send you a contract. From what I've been told, obviously I don't know any part about the PR list because I was denied that opportunity, but basically you have to follow a certain set of rules and guidelines, and certain people follow it and some people don't, and then are slowly but surely taken off the PR list. For me personally, I do have some friends that are on American Girl's PR list that have been kicked off of the American Girl PR list. I have friends who are AG-tubers with big names that aren't on the American Girl PR list, even though they deserve every right to be, but since American Girl doesn't like influencers that speak out against their brand, that kind of point out little flaws, bring out the lack of diversity, all those different things, they get denied the chance to be on the PR list. On top of that, you can easily get taken off the PR list if you speak about real world problems like elections, if you talk about what's actually happening during the pandemic. I remember that there were influencers who didn't speak out about the Black Lives Matter movement, but they posted it on their stories, and it just like, we know what you're doing, like, you want to stay on the PR list, we get it, but also like, it's just kind of like, is it really worth the new collection before it comes out if you can't speak your mind, if that makes sense? I don't know. For me personally, 4 years after reflecting on it, I'm very much grateful because I feel like a lot of things things have happened in these past 4 years that I'm just a very outspoken person, and I think that if I would have been given the opportunity to do it, I probably would have been getting kicked off anyway. But still, it's just, you know, if you're on it, I'm really, really happy for you. Again, this is all speculation and from what I've been told from people that are bigger names in the AGTube, AGIGer community. Aside from that though, yes, I went in for one last meeting with HR and I said, hey, I would love to be on American Girl's PR list. I would love to do it, and I would be more than happy to create content down the road. I just see the PR list as a way of getting compensated for my extra work. And within the week, I was basically told no. And within that week, I was impulsive and 19 and said, okay. And I put in my 2 weeks notice. And after that, I just abruptly left. I said goodbye to everyone. Everyone was really upset. I had made so many close friends. And after that, after working at the American Girl store, I kind of just, for a hot second, was obviously very, very upset about the whole situation. Very, very upset about just the way things ended with the brand. And looking back now, obviously, I feel like I acted impulsively and didn't really think my scenario through. But you live, you learn, and everything happens for a reason. And now I am able to restart with this account, with this brand, the Doll Studio by Kris, which is completely new, completely made, more professional than anything I created when I was Agsalonstylist. And now I can actually creatively shine in a way that you guys can see, and I can create hairstyles for my American Girl dolls without having to worry about, you know, getting it taken down or American Girl making it the style of the month or, you know, anything like that. I just am very happy now to be able to be my own entity, and anything that I create to just be all me. So I hope that that answers a lot of questions. I know that this video is extremely long and I probably missed so many different things, and I may or may not do a part 2, but hopefully this is enough to hold you guys over. I know a lot of people that were following me as Agsalonstylist. Thank you so much for the support. If you found me again, I cannot stress it enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Once again, I just want to say this. I personally love American Girl. I have grown and matured a lot, and hopefully none of this comes with like a negative effect to it. I just want to say that I loved every aspect of working there. I just want to talk to you guys about my experience and the sourness and the sweetness of every aspect of the job, and hopefully this answered a lot of questions for you guys, because I know that there really aren't a lot of videos of AGTubers who have worked at the store, and I probably missed a lot of different things. But there may or may not be a part 2 in the near future. Comment down below and let me know if you guys have any lingering questions for me. I would be more than happy to make a part 2 in the future. And if you got this far, thank you so much for watching this entire long video. Alright you guys, my name is Kris. You can follow me on my Instagram, which is at the Doll Studio by Kris. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel, which is the Doll Studio by Kris. Please make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and check out my previous video of Corinne's release. I cannot thank you guys enough. If you listened up to this point and me ranting, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you guys with all my heart and cannot wait to see you guys in next week's video. Alright you guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye guys.